Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We have participants from all over the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rhea Vito Tabora, co-founder of Asia Sustainable Travel, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural Asia Travel Future Summit, brought to you by AST and Y Steps Group. Today, we'll explore whether AI drives or derails the sustainable travel transformation with two thought-provoking panel discussions featuring incredible speakers from around the world. But before we get started, just a quick bit of housekeeping. Many of us are familiar with Zoom, but just as a refresher, you'll find the chat and the Q&A features at the bottom of your screen. We'll have Q&A session at the end of the keynote and at the end of each panel. Please submit your questions using the Q&A function, not the chat. But feel free to use the chat to say hello, introduce yourself, and connect with fellow attendees. Please note that this session is being recorded, and after the summit, we'll publish a key takeaways article on the Asia Sustainable Travel website and in our weekly newsletter, AST Briefing. So if you haven't subscribed yet, head to asiasustainabletravel.com after the summit to sign up and stay in the loop, and you can also easily share the takeaways with your team as well. Okay, now it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Julie Cheetham, Chief Operations Officer of Travelist, an independent, not-for-profit founded in 2019 by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, with a mission to change the way the world travels for good. Julie is a seasoned business and sustainability leader with over 20 years of experience. She was part of the founding team behind Viva, a sustainability management platform that grew into a multi-award-winning global business used in 86 countries. Her career spans financial services, business improvement, and consulting, with a strong focus on sustainable business development. Julie, we're thrilled to have you with us, and a warm welcome to the Asia Travel Future Summit.
Thank you so much for having me, Ria. And so lovely to be here today with all of you, and especially Ria and Jeremy, who have over the years kindly introduced me to the Asian sustainable travel market and have been so supportive and answered many of my questions over the years. Today, we'll talk about, will AI drive or derail sustainable travel transformation? As Ria mentioned, next slide, please. I am the COO of Travelist currently. Founded by Prince Harry, we are a global nonprofit bringing together a technology coalition worth over $3 trillion. And what we do is that we believe sustainability information and sustainability functionality for travelers, decision makers, policymakers, should not be locked behind paywalls. We believe that this is pre-competitive information, and we exist to drive systems change through unlocking this global data set and allowing it to filter up to where all of these sustainability decisions are being made. Next slide, please. We mobilize the industry to provide this trusted information so that we can accelerate the change we all want to see in our beloved tourism industry so that we can endure. Let's dive into the topic. Next slide, please. I'm by no means an AI expert, but I'm fortunate enough to sit at the intersection of many fantastic organizations that are considering the uses of AI and how we can all use this for not only commercial gain, but also for people and for planet. AI has great potential to optimize operations across businesses and to work for travelers, but the environmental costs can't be ignored. Some of the things that we really are excited about is that AI can provide us with advanced analytics, benchmarking and reporting through creating data sets that enable data-driven executive and operational decision-making at an organizational level is very exciting. Especially that today we have many fragmented data sets and gaps in our data, and AI can account for this. Machine learning is exciting, and through its basic use, we streamline business processes and create business operational efficiencies. Things like customer service and support through chatbots Managing queries and facilitating bookings are increasingly being done through AI. In its most basic use, we can digitize repetitive processes and tasks to free up human resource to think about more pressing issues and to decrease the costs. Payment handling, booking management, dynamic pricing adjustments, and scheduling, resource planning, and rota management are a couple of the examples we're seeing in hospitality businesses across the globe. Facial recognition reduces friction and queuing at airports and key travel touchpoints. AI can also empower the traveler themselves, personalized inspiration, and the booking process becomes faster and more streamlined, more tailored to the likes and wants of the traveler. These data-driven insights that drive decision-making can also help us in fighting things like over-tourism, where we can use analytics to identify and predict over-tourism hotspots. We can use benchmarking to look at real sustainability impacts, progress against things like climate action plans, economic leakage, smoothing out seasonal differentials. Ultimately, we can help shape what the traveler sees first and their options and exposure. Environmental costs, however, are also enormous, and we should not forget that AI uses an increasingly high amount of energy. Data centers that host AI technology in most places still come from the burning of fossil fuels, and a request made through ChatGPT consumes 10 times the electricity of a Google search. Data centers use water during construction and to cool components once ready, but we'll dive into that a little bit more. Ria, if we could go back one slide, please. Thank you so much. Some fantastic stories happening within our own coalition. Our partners at Google launched Project Green Light in 2023. Green Light optimizes traffic lights to reduce vehicle emissions in cities and help mitigate climate change and increase urban mobility. So using AI and Google Maps, which has one of the strongest understandings of global road networks, to model traffic patterns and build intelligent recommendations for city traffic engineers, we're optimizing traffic flow. The early numbers coming out of this project indicate a potential for up to 30% reduction in stops and 10% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. This is a better experience for all the travelers on these roads, using them for life, leisure, or travel. It's now live in 20 countries across 4 continents, from Kolkata to Boston, USA. These intersections are able to save fuel and lower emissions for up to 47 million car rides monthly. On to the next slide. Thanks, Ria. AI can empower travelers to make more informed decisions. This offers huge potential, and we've seen this be an early adoption of AI across our sector. This is reshaping booking behavior. It's guiding travelers to lesser known destinations and encouraging exploration of things that travelers wouldn't ordinarily reach for through personalized inspiration. But this is a very much garbage in, garbage out scenario. Unfortunately, with most of technology, that's the case. Its success relies on accurate and reliable data. We know that credible, compliant, and consistent data can help people make more informed choices. And this has been our focus as we've developed the Travelers Data Hub together with our coalition partners. Freely flowing sustainability information that empowers travelers with the confidence to make informed choices and the potential to be coupled with AI in the future gives us a powerful global data set. Our partners at Skyscanner have launched Layla AI Trip Planner. Layla gives tailored recommendations to travelers, inspiration, a sense of what the destination will be like through curated videos, and travelers can book the flights directly on the app. Skyscanner Travel Trends report from 2026 tells us that travelers are getting more and more confident in using AI to plan and book their travel, rising from 47% in 2024 to 54% in 2025. On the next slide, please, we'll examine some of the challenges and risks of AI and sustainability. We can't avoid the high energy consumption that still comes from these data centers, mostly from fossil fuels. As I mentioned, a request made through ChatGPT, an AI-based virtual assistant, consumes 10 times the electricity of a Google search. This is reported by the International Energy Agency. As mentioned, this IEA also estimates that the tech hub of Ireland, the rise of AI could see data centers account for nearly 35% of the country's energy use by 2026. Water use is also extreme. Globally, AI-related infrastructure may soon consume 6 times more water than the country of Denmark, a country of 6 million people. That is a problem when a quarter of humanity already lacks access to clean drinking water. Besides water and energy impacts, there are environmentally destructive impacts to mining the minerals that are used in microchips and other infrastructure. And data centers produce electronic waste, which often contains hazardous materials like mercury and lead. This is besides the ethical concerns of diminished human oversight and intervention. On the next slide, let's think about the importance of ethical AI practices and the role of responsible data collection to avoid unintended consequences such as greenwashing. The ethics is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. I'm the mom of 4 boys, 2 of my own and 2 bonus boys aged between 13 and 26. And what they're exposed to and how their opinions are being shaped by technology and what they consume is of increasing concern to me when this is in the hands of a few organizations. In terms of sustainability, we need to align as a sector around consistent and credible data to fully explore AI's potential in driving a more sustainable future for travel and tourism. A global dataset enabled by blockchain for traceability and verification could be analyzed by AI for powerful personalization and commercial opportunities, provided that there's transparency and open data flow. 49% of travelers worry about the accuracy of the information they're receiving through AI channels. 24% of travelers say that they are overwhelmed with too many choices, and 22% say that AI does not serve up enough meaningful options for their trip. That is from the Skyscanner Travel Trends Report of 2026. We have the EU's Empowering Consumers Directive and other such legislation on the horizon, and this aims to prevent greenwashing and empower consumers to make more informed choices. But I guess overall it's a powerful tool when used well, but can also be a tool for manipulation of data and outcomes given clever prompting. On the next slide, Ria, the human element in AI is irreplaceable. The human connection and building relationships with destinations, the experience that the travelers have when they immerse themselves in all of our beautiful places on this planet and the beautiful cultures where they are visiting local communities. This is essential in order to understand that no replacement for warmth and care, a smile and a personal anecdote can be found through artificial intelligence. However, we can use AI to better understand the needs of travelers and which initiatives of travel will make the most positive impacts for people and planet. We need to couple human relationship building with AI and data insights for AI-driven sustainability initiatives to work. And hospitality knows no replacement. In closing, on the last slide, I'd like to end with a call to action. At our coalition, we're committed to ensuring that we use AI as a tool for good to transform travel without compromising the planet. We must ensure that credible, consistent, and compliant data sits at the heart of AI development in our sector. And we can do this if we work together and align as an industry around open access data to truly drive the change we want to see. Together we can change travel for good. Thank you so much for listening to me and allowing me to share a few thoughts on the subject.
Wow, thank you so much for those incredible insights, Julie. So you've given us a full overview from the role of AI to the challenges and risks, and most importantly, the human connection. We now have time for 2 questions. We still have a few minutes left, 3 minutes before we start with the first panel. We have actually received one here. Julie, question for you. What do you think is the next big step in making sustainability information more accessible and actionable for travelers?
Thank you for the question. I think that free-flowing sustainability information is what's going to help us to empower travelers to make choices with confidence. We know that compliant and credible data can help people make better choices. This is one of the things we're focusing on in our data hub. And so obviously data is commercial. Data, can be monetized. Data is powerful and it's a currency in which we trade. And we're not suggesting that all commercial and confidence data just be, shared and not be behind paywalls. But certainly if we can get a credible data set that helps us understand impacts at destinations, drive more balanced decision making across policymakers, businesses, and travelers for both leisure and business, we can have a huge impact through that free-flowing data set on a global scale. So I think that's the next big step, is that truly global consolidated data set rather than all of the fragmented bits and pieces we have
Right, right,
uh, at the moment.
right. Thank you so much for that. I think we have one more question. Just a quick one. What advice would you give to travel companies looking to innovate responsibly without staying committed, while staying committed to sustainability goals?
Oh, wow. So as I said, I'm not an AI expert, but I would say iterate. So experiment and iterate. Make small changes and then assess the impacts of those changes and really listen to your customers as well. Listen to those most impacted by travel. The host countries, the host destinations, the host communities themselves, make sure that the changes you're making are not having unintended consequences and also that they're working for your travelers. So I would say listen and iterate and have fun.
Have fun. That's one important thing to keep in mind as well. Well, Julie, I think that ends our keynote. Thank you so much again for your expertise, for sharing your vision with us. We really appreciate your time and the insights that you have shared with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ria.
Okay, now let's move to our first panel. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator and actually our partner for this summit, Matteo Bierschneider. Matteo is a sustainable tourism consultant, trainer, and auditor for global sustainability standards, and above all, a passionate social entrepreneur who has dedicated over a decade to advancing tourism development in Indonesia and across the Asia Pacific region. He is the co-founder of the Y Steps Groups, a social enterprise designed to intervene at multiple layers of the tourism value chain. Y Steps connects international expertise with deep local insights through Sajiva, Y Steps Consulting, and Y Steps Foundation. Matteo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ria. Thanks, Julie. Very insightful, great introduction. And before we move on, I think we have a sharing issue here. Can you, is it only me who can, yeah, uh, you see the slides properly, or is it only my side? Yeah? Okay, perfect. All right, great. All right, I'm very honored to lead our first panel. Thanks, Ria, for the introduction. Great start, very insightful. And our first panel is driving sustainability-led operational excellence through human AI collaboration. I guess in this session, we really want to explore a major opportunity for hospitality leaders. So how to leverage AI technology and to improve efficiency, sustainability, and value across all properties. Together with our amazing panelists, we'll move beyond the general discussion of AI, I hope, and we will really look at tangible results. We will explore how fusing human judgment with AI-driven insights effectively optimizes performance, enhances resource use, and supports the development of more resilient and ultimately, hopefully, sustainable hotel operations. So I'd like to introduce my panel, and they're joining from different places all over, well, I'd say Asia. Joining us from Bangkok, Thailand, is Andrea Bellini. Hi, Andrea. Senior Consulting Manager at Lightblue. He leverages extensive experience in business transformation and change management across not only the APAC region, but also Europe, and implements sustainable practices that significantly reduce food waste and certainly drive long-term operational impact across the hospitality sector. Thanks for being with us today, Andrea.
Hi, Matteo. Thank you very much for inviting me and attend this webinar. Nice to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you too. And joining us from Singapore is Matthew Lowe, founder of Advant Labs, an innovator who leverages his deep background in management consulting and luxury travel technology to revolutionize, and we can say revolutionize, the Asian hospitality sector by helping the leaders harness data and AI for operational transformation. Thank you very much, Matthew. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Matteo. It's great to be here. Hi, everyone.
All right. Last but not least, joining from his annual leave, that's what I call dedication, and from Manila, the Philippines, Chris Legaspi, Chief Commercial Officer at Archipelago International, who drives digital transformation across more than 200 hotels, notably as the creator of one of the in-house revenue management platforms called FluxRate. Currently, he's pursuing his Doctor of Business Administration, and his research, interestingly, focuses on how technology enhances and not replaces human decision making. Welcome to the Asia Travel Future Summit, and thank you very much for being here.
Hello, Matteo. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, let's get started, I guess. I think as I am, as well as the audience, is very excited to hear from you firsthand. Let's talk about operational excellence for a second. Yeah, we have to acknowledge that it's often constrained by human habit or lack of real-time visibility. So AI's greatest value may not be, as some fear, replacing people, but actually in providing simple, actionable data to the people that then ultimately make the decisions, right? I think Julie mentioned already a lot of aspects of AI, what AI is possible, and probably also considering that many audience members here and people like me, like the audience, are also just getting starting to comprehend the profound changes that is actually ahead of us due to the AI. Or some might even call it like an evolution. Matthew, can you explain in easy terms so everyone can understand it, the rapid pace of AI development, and based on your experience, why is it crucial right now for tourism businesses or basically any business to adopt or establish something what you call probably a thought partnership with AI? Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure, Matteo. Thanks. So look, in terms of rapid change, I think it's a really good way to put it. And if we look at like AI progress, and we just wind the clock back maybe several years, I think if we look at store-bought AI, I'm talking about your ChatGPT window, we have really progressed from something that was a novelty, something you sort of like pinged for poems or fart jokes, to a place where it's now really able to drive workflow, tap into multiple data sources, and what's been really exciting for us to witness is really to apply discernment and judgment. So that happened really in the span of what, like 2 years, right? And so if you look at that pace of change, I think it's pretty depending which side of the fence you land on, I think it's pretty exciting or pretty scary. I think the other thing you have to recognize then, if you look at that as a consequence of follow-on, is that it can essentially absorb the scope of a job. Okay. So it's making decisions. Again, it's reading data. And in its latest iteration, what we're seeing, it's essentially autonomous. So it can just act on its own. So when we or we assess the matter of criticality, I think those are the things you got to look at, which is just recognize the rate of change as the first thing. I don't think in recorded history there has been any sort of technology that has been evolving and adopted as quickly as AI. Though I understand the promise of it is always around the corner, right? And we'll talk about that in a moment. And then the second thing is it's just definitely going to impact the way that we work or the future of work, right? And I certainly wouldn't try to take a guess at what that's going to look like. But I think we just recognize that those are the two things that are happening. And in terms of its impact on our industry and the criticality is that, if you're not thinking about it or if you're not adopting it, your competitor is. And I think that's where it happens for us, right? Is really it's going to change the way that businesses operate, and owners, operators are going to really have an eye towards the bottom line, or they do have an eye towards the bottom line, and that's what we're seeing. So, that's sort of looking at it from one angle in terms of how competition is heating up. On the other hand, frustratingly, I'm going to be contrarian here. I also think it's worth looking at this from the other angle, which is, to be a skeptic or a bit of a Luddite is also healthy, right? Because I think it is pretty scary tech, and if we look in the history of like technology adoption, there's this auto assumption that like it's always good progress, but in fact, it's oftentimes been driven by the profit motive, right? And not necessarily human desire or human good. And so if we look at hospitality or tourism, where human craft is the USP, it requires discernment and good judgment in terms of how we apply this technology. And so, of course, the hope is that AI isn't here to replace the soul of tourism and hospitality, but it's going to remove the drudgery of it, right? And everything that gets in the way of that. So that's what I have to say about that. I don't know if there's more you'd like me to add, but
No, that
yeah.
sounds beautiful, and it's very much related also to my next question for Chris, actually. So given that fast-paced development and from AI or tech solutions, it's not maybe all AI, but Matthew also described it like as a yeah, something that's never been seen before, and maybe even in a little evolution, right? So naturally, we have people that are really like worried. Some say, okay, this will replace a lot of jobs. This will be impacting my employment position, and but Chris, I think you really championed the idea that human judgment still remains paramount,
Mhm.
while machine learning is still serving us, but in a way that it's augmenting our capabilities and refine
Yeah.
decision making. So, can you elaborate a bit on that vision, or how do you believe that ultimately leads to more resilient hotel operations, for instance?
True. Thanks for that, Matteo. If you can show my slide,
Yeah, please, maybe.
just this page. So basically, I'm working on a framework specifically for the hotel business where I am looking at human judgment being multiplied with machine learning, which is equivalent to eventually resilient leadership or resilient hotel. Because what you can do, for example, before AI, you can do a lot more, okay, with
Hmm.
the power of the machines, with the power of AI. So it brings you to another level and of efficiency and speed as well. So basically in the hotel business, I see this every day in the hotels. Teams worry that automation will take something away from them. What I've learned is that the real threat isn't automation, actually, it's overload. When people spend their days buried in reports or repetitive tasks, they lose the space to think, sell, can connect to guests. And remember, in the hotels, we have to connect to guests. That is where performance breaks down. My view is simple. Machines are great at patterns and repetition. People are great at judgment, context, and relationships. When we let AI take over the heavy processing, we give our teams time back. That space is what builds the resilience, which I'm talking about in my slide. A revenue manager who isn't drowning in spreadsheets can focus on strategy. A sales leader who isn't stuck assembling reports can spend more time with partners. A GM who is clearly seeing proper forecasts can stay ahead of staffing and service issues. I've seen this play out in Archipelago when we were rolling out Fluxrate, for example. Automation didn't replace anybody, it
Hmm.
strengthened them. Hotels that embrace the tools become faster, calmer, and even coordinated. When pressure hits, those teams respond better because they're not running on empty. That's the
Hmm.
synergy I believe in. AI builds clarity. People use that clarity to act with the purpose. The combination gives the hotel the stability and agility it needs to perform a lot better.
Very interesting. And just like that, the fear is gone. I appreciate it. No, it's very, very insightful. I think it's that's beautifully put. And I guess also like that, right? I mean, who doesn't understand it? Like if we have, as you say, our desks full, fully overloaded, we are stressed, that naturally results in our stress mechanisms to kick in, and that kills creativity and innovation. So we actually basically can't think anymore properly. And
Exactly.
yeah.
And Mateo, just to add to that, I think the only one, I mean, indeed, there is the fear of getting erased or probably being not relevant anymore, but the decision is actually on the person. If the
Mm,
person will evolve and learn something new, for example, if we all say no, we don't want to participate in this modern technology, then probably yes, you will be eliminated. This is
mm,
nothing new. Back in the 80s, we had the Excels, Microsoft, remember back in the day?
mm,
And everybody thought that Excel is evil and that it will eliminate all the accountants. But accountants are still here because they evolve and learn how to use these tools to their advantage.
Yeah, beautiful. So just augmenting our capabilities, not replacing them, and still very much linked to human judgment. They're very much like that, and I think I would love to agree on that as well. All right, thank you. Let's move on to Andrea. Andrea, your work is very much rooted in changing operational behavior through data. What is the biggest psychological block that prevents kitchens and operation staff from, let's say, reducing food waste, or how does a data-driven tool like your food waste monitoring system successfully break that block? Like, how does it help us to get through to the managers and to the owners?
Thank you, Matteo. So I would like to start by saying that the main difficulty that we face is usually a bit of resistance to change.
Hmm.
The kitchen team sometimes um, there is also lack of incentive. So also from the kitchen team perspective, if you report in a better way food waste, you will show basically to your management how much food you're wasting. So you basically don't really um, valorize yourself, and I mean you get a bit scared of showing the real data, like you're doing
Hmm.
something bad. So there is a bit the need to accept the situation. Food is being wasted at the moment in the hotel. We need
Hmm.
to define a starting point, and then from there implement initiatives, action that can actually reduce food waste. But the first step is to admit that there is food waste. And also, I would say a bit of a lack of awareness about the overall issue and how much food is actually being wasted in the organization. When we talk with the chef, with sustainability team, we noticed that at the moment, despite the industry has a lot of KPI, there was not real focus on the different type of waste, the different type of food waste that they have. Usually the main KPI track is kg per day, and that's it. So the industry doesn't deep
Kilograms
dive.
per day. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So there is no real deep dive on the data and trying to understand why this is happening. But then to connect it to what Chris was just mentioning and before also Matthew, we consider, so we believe that we need to start from data because if you know how much you're wasting on a daily basis, you know when, where, which type of food you're wasting the most,
Hmm.
you can then take actions. But at the end, a support like a monitoring tool is not going to reduce your food waste like by magic. There is no formula. This reporting tool is an enabler that is will support the work of sustainability team, a finance team, a kitchen team, the chef, and then is based on what the chef, what the people, what the hotel team will actually implement, will do, based on the information, based on the insight that the reporting tool is giving you, then you can really reduce food waste. But the system just points you in the right direction. It tell you inside KPI, but then
Hmm.
is will not manually reduce food waste for you.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, so there's still the last mile, sort of, that is requiring human action, human commitment, and judgment, as we just heard as well. Do you have a successful human tech feedback loop example where technology generated like significant insights, maybe, and immediately led to some kind of better
Sure.
understanding and maybe even behavioral change? Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I hope we push for a behavioral change with all the clients we work with. This is my hope. Maybe if you move to the next slide, I think for the audience
Yeah.
can be helpful to understand a little bit the type of KPI that our system track and give insight. So basically, we answer to five main questions. Where food waste is coming from, when food waste is happening, why food waste is happening, is being wasted, what type of food, and then obviously how much. So I think that the most relevant one, at least for this conversation, is the why. The why point the chef in the right direction, and then based on the type of waste that is occurring in a hotel, we will provide different type of recommendation because the same solution doesn't work for there is no one size fits all. So if, for instance, we have a high level of spoilage waste, I would like to discuss with the hotel team about their purchasing procedure, their storage procedure, how they run their inventory. If instead like the data tell me that is more an issue related to plate waste, we can then start talking about portioning, review the menu, or implement some kind of project for communication, like to engage the guest and try to realize the commitment and the direction that uh, the hotel wants to pursue in terms of sustainability. Um, so basically, data allow us to identify common patterns and areas of improvement. We also make analysis by type of hotels because different type of hotels, they usually have different type of trends in terms of food waste. We then benchmark data between similar properties also in different markets. So we can see different region, how do react to food waste. Um, and
Okay.
also we compare this data obviously with the number of covers. So this is helpful in order to avoid the effect of seasonality because obviously that's otherwise it will affect a lot. So what we do at the end, we provide it's called a weekly performance report to our customers, which is basically analyze of the week. So every week they will see which type of category is creating the most waste, when we shift, which hotel, which kitchen, and so based on these insights, then we constantly follow up with the kitchen
Nice.
team and see what they're implementing in order to to do better.
Amazing, amazing solution. So it's really giving you enough data and interpretation of data to show you where to act quickly within the weeks, even. I guess when let's stay with you for a second, Andrea.
Sure.
When we talk about operational data, it's often trapped or fragmented in systems and difficult for managers. Now we're talking about chefs, but we actually need to talk about F&B managers, maybe even, general managers or even owners. Yeah. So how can we, in terms of operational excellence, I think it really requires to integrate and translate this data into actionable insights. I think that's what your reports are very much doing. Like if
Yes.
you, I happen to seen one of these reports before, so I know quite nice. I know they're quite nicely, and they tell you where to go next, what to do next. But I guess at a magnitude of, we also need to look at the overall magnitude of this impact. Like, how do we look at the significant financial impact, basically, of these solutions? So I guess that's where owners come in, right? They're looking for return of investments. Yeah, if I invest in that
Absolutely.
technology, what happens later? What do I get out of it? So Light Blue did actually invest a significant effort in collecting and analyzing large data sets of food waste and financial performance, and I think that's very interesting. So can you share like what does it actually mean? Obviously, we're talking about chef level or like a kitchen level, but what does it actually mean for hotel owners if they're looking at their food waste, and how does it not only impact like sustainability but also maybe the profit side of things?
Absolutely, absolutely, Matteo. So, of course, the sustainability aspect is very important. Is the main reason why we do what we do. But then for hotels, there is obviously it's very important to look at the financial KPI, to look at potential ROI of this type of project. Recently, we published a report. Thank you for mentioning it. So basically, we made this research with owners and hotel properties, where basically we collected their financial data and we study how the reduction of food waste can positively impact their operating cost. So on average, based on what we collected, we saw that between 6 to 14% of hotel food revenue on the food side, obviously, uh, it's basically related to food waste. So we have 6 to 14% of the food revenue, which is just like thrown out in the garbage, is buy food that then at the end will not be provided to the guest. Um, at the same time, so obviously it's um, I mean, hotels need to maintain certain standard, so it's unlikely to reduce food waste to zero, but we can, I think, quite comfortably say that we can reduce up to 50% if certain projects, certain initiatives are rightly
50%.
implemented. 50%, yes.
Wow.
So we're
Amazing.
talking about like 3 to 7% on at the end overall on the food cost for a hotel. That is, it's quite significant. Obviously,
Which are
different.
increasing, right? I mean, the food costs are
Absolutely,
constantly increasing. We
absolutely.
have.
With inflation and all the turmoil that we are seeing around the world, the food cost needs to be maintained under a certain threshold.
Mhm.
Uh, and obviously, this is more relevant for certain type of hotels. Ideally, the best scenario are those high-end luxury resort that usually offer some kind of like all-inclusive package. In this case, we have like a large number of covers always, and
Mhm.
obviously they keep eating in the same resort for like the whole
Mm.
journey. I'm thinking about like we did some project recently, for instance, in the Maldives. So those kind of like countries, they have a really high food cost due to the import and logistics of the resort. So basically, reducing by a couple percentage point, it may sound little, but for their operation is actually like a lot of money. Then another easy one is obviously reduction of food waste means reduction of disposal cost. Like
Mhm.
waste
Sure.
is a cost for hotels, but if we want to move for a moment aside of the bottom line, but we want to focus more on the revenue and the type of incentive that this type of food waste prevention policy strategy can lead to, we're seeing, as the first panelist was presenting, a stronger an increasing trend and research of sustainable products, sustainable solution
Mhm.
from
Of
both
course. Yeah.
customers and staff. I
Yeah.
mean, there is also like the industry has a high turnover, so it's important to maintain your staff engaged. And we've
Mhm.
seen that this type of project that are very much related to the social community, to the environment, are
Mhm.
really, really well appreciated both by the customers, but as well by the staff that feels more engaged with the organization. So I think is also an element of staff
Yeah.
retention.
Increases loyalty, yeah, because they see that the
Absolutely.
hotels are caring. They want to work for places
Brand
that care.
positioning,
Yeah, very,
absolutely.
very, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Andrea. For everyone who's interested to read more, we also share the report in the chat box. You can simply have a look. And yeah, and maybe next question to Chris. Back to you, Chris. Um, when I mean we've now gone very deep actually into the operational areas with Andrea, so we can see like okay, there is technology, there is AI and large scale data analysis that enable us to make things visible that were not visible previously, right? So how does that let's move beyond guest interaction. I know we have a lot of examples. I think Julie also mentioned it before, like chatbots. But how have you seen automation and augmentation with AI leading to more significant improvements in operational excellence? I mean, you mentioned already you took off the huge workload from the managers, but can you be more specific in Archipelago Hotel Group? Like how did you work on that, and what did you achieve over the last few months or years? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for that, Mateo. And I'd like to piggyback on what Andrea said earlier as well. I'd like to break my answer down into two lenses. One is on operational areas, and the other one on sustainability.
Mm,
So the biggest gains for us didn't come from guest-facing AI.
mm,
They came from the repetitive back of house work that used to drain our teams. Forecasting, pricing, pickup analysis, rate deployment, website analytics, all the things that keep a hotel running but take hours of manual effort.
mm,
When we automated this with FluxRate, which is our AI revenue management system, and our commercial stack, the change was immediate.
mm,
Output increased because teams finally had time to focus on the work that moves revenue. Accuracy improved because decisions were based on clean data. just like also what Andrea said earlier, not rush spreadsheets. Coordination got better because everyone, from the GM to the sales to the revenue managers, were looking at the same source of truth. I've seen entire hotels become more disciplined simply because the system removed friction from their daily tasks. That's where the operational excellence really show up. Now, in this lens of sustainability, yes, and not in the buzzword way, in a hotel environment,
Hmm.
sustainability starts with stability.
Hmm.
You need predictable operations, smarter use of resources, and teams that are not running or burnt out. AI helps us get there in a few powerful ways. It improves forecast accuracy, for example, because that's very important. If we are not more accurate in forecasting, it entails costs, for example,
Hmm.
which means better staffing if we are focusing and accurate in forecasting and less waste in F&B, just like what Andrea said earlier. It gives real-time visibility into performance, which reduces energy usage because we can plan ahead of time. It cuts repetitive work. Sometimes we tend to hire a lot of people because of repetitive tasks. And that's
Hmm.
what AI helps us with. For a large hotel group, this matters a lot. When 200 properties run with the same level of clarity, consistency, and efficiency, sustainability impact is multiplied, definitely.
Very interesting. Yeah, so it's a good connection. I guess predicting the resources that you need is already a big help, and it would probably directly your impact your area, Andrea.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, yeah. If that's probably also one of the biggest challenges, how we make sure that we cater fully in oftentimes, the customers are expecting that kind of abundance, that kind of,
Yes.
readiness, service is there, food is there, everything is there. But
Yeah.
how are we being efficient about it in terms of operations? Yeah.
So sorry, but just to add to that, just like what you said earlier, when owners are asking for ROI, yes, sometimes they just look at the cost of the new tool, for example, but they don't factor in the cost savings that they would have if they use a certain new tool, for example, for the entire hotel. So these are the things that should be emphasized when we're discussing items like this. For example, the tool that Andrea even presented earlier.
Okay. Very interesting. Yeah, I think it's super interesting. Okay. Do you see any other areas of sustainability that might be impacted in the future? Not maybe not now, but like can you imagine that what's possible right now and maybe in a few months' time? Do you see anything at that scale? You said that's interesting to look at it at scale, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, a lot. So there will be guest facing, just like what you said earlier, but really more of the how to crunch the data properly so that it can help us put together better judgment for the business and for the hotel.
Mm,
Basically, it's not only the forecasting, but think about making the entire process or improving the processes of the hotel itself
mm,
so that the guest eventually gets happier because of improved processes. One of the things that a few people are talking about is, for example, guest reviews. These are now easily automated, or with the use of AIs, the listening tools can be put together easily now, and you can address issues. So it's not necessarily guest facing, but because of the data you receive and you are able to comprehend and listen better, then you can improve the services better.
beautiful. Very insightful. Appreciate it. Matthew, let's talk a bit about crunching data. You mentioned it already, Chris. It's quite. I think it totally makes sense, and I understand that a lot of managers are spammed with data and can't keep up if they don't use probably te proper technology and AI. Um, can you, Matthew? Maybe you're very close to the topic as well, and you've been developing solutions for hotels. So can you explain in your experience, like how do you help, especially hotels with limited resources? Obviously, a hotel group might be something different than boutique luxury hotels. And can you maybe also walk us through a bit of a brief case study, or maybe,
Yeah,
like
sure.
an idea how, so we can imagine what you're doing with how you're helping the hotels basically.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So th thanks for that question, and to Chris and Andrea for setting some context in terms of where they're coming from. Here at Advent, we really focus on luxury hospitality. That's sort of our game, especially the upper registers of experiential operators. And so, what's really interesting is in this space, you tend to work with much smaller teams and much just much more focused on the experience side of things. And so where the biggest impact often isn't so much on the operations side, it's really on driving the top line. And when you're talking about helicopter skiing, Porsche drive through the fjords, so on and so forth. You are not putting an AI bot in front of these people. What you want to do is actually enable the smoothest, most seamless purchase experience that is on brand. And that's where we've actually implemented AI and the applied data science aspects into, the frontline staff. So just behind the people who just behind the customer side, right? So essentially travel agents, and the people who are dealing with those travel agents. And so if we break down this AI topic essentially into sort of three categories of like data science and how do we harness data, workflow and automation,
Mhm.
and then the actual AI, right? Like the endpoint of whether it's a chatbot or whatever that tool is that's going to tell you and give you that clarity and that insight. We as a team basically break that down and walk through that with the client. And the worst thing you could do probably is to try to automate chaos, right? Because I think any hotel operation has like tons and tons of data,
Mhm.
and all kinds of what do you call it? Like, in unofficial workflows. And so that's what we do is actually the very first thing we do when we go boots on the ground is to work through all of the data.
Mhm.
We focus obviously on the sales and marketing side, so we're really big on like the CRM and the historical aspects and looking at it in terms of performance. Then we actually work through the sales process and the sales organization to look at the workflows and which areas, as I was mentioning before, could benefit, right, from a touch of automation. Let's not even say AI, right?
Mhm.
And then once these real world models are organized, then we can plug that into uh, you know, a intelligent platform, right? Could be, OpenAI or Claude, whatever, right? So that's our approach. In terms of an interesting case study, I was trying to think of one, with w we have a Safari operator that we're actually building a concierge tool that's AI driven, but it's for the trade. So it is not for the endpoint customer, but for the travel agents. And then that is designed to essentially take a lot of the back and forth that
Mhm. Yeah.
traditionally happened over email or, when they're searching through, the website or an asset management system. So that takes a lot of that drudgery offline, and then the agents is able to move through the buying process and the deal as quickly as possible. And then we also connect that to a companion portal we call an agent portal, that based on the context of the deal and the conversation that's happening will essentially self-curate and self-arrange information for that agent. So sort of this iceberg principle where the chatbot is able to keep the deal moving quickly,
Mhm.
and then if you need more information, more context, it's self curating inside this portal. So that's probably like the best example of that I can think of in terms of when we've worked with a client to comb through their data, organize their workflow, and then with discernment look at where do we actually put in AI.
Very, very interesting, yeah.
Yeah,
And I guess every client is different. I mean, every operation
definitely.
is different. So you'll
Yeah.
you'll find your workflows, you just, and then there's a unique customized solution. Probably there's some general themes and topics that everyone is doing.
Yeah.
Actually, related to that, if you look at based on your experience, like are there any? I guess that hotel businesses already starting to adopt. Some are more advanced, like maybe the Archipelago Group. Others are just getting started. Is there anything that besides what you mentioned that having the right data available. Are there any common mistakes or dangerous practices that you would recommend anyone who's scaling their AI solutions right now in their operations to prevent or to avoid?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency to move towards like, the obvious answers, the first degree of change, which is like, oh, okay, so I'll give you an example. I was speaking to a hotel operator again in the luxury segment, and he was like, oh, I could bring in AI, and essentially I could really help my reservations team answer these emails quickly. And I told him it's probably the worst thing you could probably do because they're going to freak out. They're just going to think they're all just going to think they're going to be replaced, and it's going to create a real like morale issue because we've seen this. And so again, discernment. I was like, why don't we actually work at the other end of the spectrum? So we went to the RM, right? Essentially, the guys who driving it through the trade side and build up that sort of coalition and that buy-in internally, rather than to come at the other way and to look at those like obvious things. We're like, yeah, I could just put in AI and just remove this area. So I think that temptation is there, and it's going to require careful judgment. I think the other thing here in Asia, and sorry, just Mateo, I think this gets into the next set of questions you were going to ask, but
All right.
uh,
I'm flexible.
a lot of, at least in this part of the world, many of the hotels that I work with are part of the community. They're a force of change. They provide training. They're
Mhm.
civically minded, and so I think that's also something to contend with or think about is to be like, look, I could put AI here and essentially replace this whole team, but is that the right thing to do, or should AI actually be repurposed to train these people and to move these people up the value chain, right? And so I think those are the journeys that I am on with my
Mhm.
clients, but with throughout my portfolio, everyone is going through some kind of transformation and implementing and wiring up their business for applied data science, automation, and workflow, and ultimately pushing that into some kind of intelligent platform and endpoint.
Yeah, very good point. I think we cannot just, plug and play solutions is never gonna easily work for those
Yeah.
individual businesses out there, and also, yeah, be mindful of the people that make the business work. Take them along with you on the journey, accompany them. Be part of the change management process, and anticipate those kind of issues. Very well said. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it. Yeah. So yeah, I think you already have been looking ahead a bit, yeah? So how does it affect us in the future? Again, this human AI collaboration, how we can really create a balance, right? So we need to discuss not just what AI can do, but also how we ensure that our reliance on this technology is in cooperations remain ethical, responsible, and people-centered. I think Julie mentioned already a few ideas and really like look at the technology as such. What are the negative impacts of the technology? But also, as you just mentioned, Matthew, like anticipating or taking out that fear from staff, from people that are new to this technology, and especially tourism. I mean, we mentioned that tourism is hospitality will rarely be replaced. There are some examples probably that are specifically, robot driven or, like engine driven, but I would say most of it is true warmth hospitality. So how we keep that in, and maybe Chris, this is a question for you. Um, if you would, your experience is vast. You've been working with 200 hotels, you've been implementing solutions, you've been testing solutions, so you have a huge wealth of experience. What critical piece of advice would you give to any independent hoteliers, let's say, not a group, who is really nervous about getting started with the AI-driven operational journey, but
Mhm.
where's the safest, quickest area for them to start investing and really see some positive outcomes? Like
Mhm.
recommendation.
Yeah, thanks, Mateo. So I agree with Matthias earlier when he said that it's not just like buying a tool and make it work. I mean, not buying a tool, then later you think you're 100% occupancy immediately. It's pretty much like buying a car. If you don't know how to drive, what are you gonna do with a car, right? So for me, okay, this is not very, how do you call this, very common, but I believe that when I buy something, I must understand the logic behind it. And if I cannot, then I need to be able to figure out what it is exactly. So I don't buy a revenue management system just because it's popular. Somebody has to make me understand what is the logic behind that tool that I'm going to buy. So what's my point? You know, nowadays in management science, there's a thing called bricolage. Bricolage is a French term, but in management science, it means just making do with what you have.
Mm.
Okay, so it doesn't mean that a small independent hotel cannot compete with the giants just because they can't afford. They must start from somewhere and understand what they have. And
Mhm.
another thing that for them to understand how to compete or how to do this I believe just like what I did is learn how to
Mm.
do AI. The first step I would encourage everybody because even the young students are doing this now is to learn Python, for example.
Python. Okay.
Yes, because Python, for example, your chat GPT that everybody loves and adores right now was created by Python using the Python language.
Mm.
So my point is, yes, there is it's not very easy to learn things, but you have to start somewhere. And if you
Mhm.
cannot afford, that doesn't mean that you need to just get out of the competition because you can't afford. You have to start somewhere, learn
Mm.
how to compete, and learn and upgrade your skills so that you can compete better. So again, for example, they learn these new capabilities for Python, for example, and all of that. Then they will be surprised as after they learn programming, they would be able to figure out gaps and assemble simple programs for that. Let me give you a perfect example. In our case, one time in the office, I just realized I'm paying X amount of money for email sending machine or sending tool because we have about 20,000 staff. Then in a couple of, I decided to make our own. And in an hour, we had a working system. Then I told everybody, moving forward, we're going to use the system instead.
In an hour.
So it works, and that's what we're using right now. So my
Amazing.
point only is there are many things. It doesn't have to be life-changing system immediately. We have to figure out first, start with the pain. Where is it painful?
Mhm.
Because when you understand where is the pain point, you can address it. And when you win
Mm.
it, when you are able to address and fix it, it's a quick win.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay. So
Makes sense.
again, as simple as email, and I go like, okay, I'm signing every month about, I don't know, $5,000 for this. And I go like, is it really that complicated? Or we can do something simple that everybody can use anyway, because we don't need all the functionality of it. And we ended up having, okay, then this is a system that we can work on already. So my last point of this is bricolage, make do with what you have, as I
Mhm.
said, understand your capabilities and upgrade your capabilities, and you are going to be able to compete with the giants.
Amazing. Very interesting insight. That's a very motivational speech. Appreciate that, Chris. And very, very innovative if you just, just sit down and do it yourself and then you change the whole system for the hotel chain. Impressive. Matthew, how do you see that long-term future of AI and the role of humans in, Asian or in international tourism sector? um, what are the practical steps we can take now to ensure and achieve also healthy, beneficial balance between human and AI collaboration? I think you touched upon already in the previous point, accompanying the process, making sure everyone is aboard, looking at the solution as well. But do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the future, for what AI means in terms of the future tourism in Asia, unfortunately, I'm not terribly optimistic in the immediate term in that is I'm vastly generalizing. In my experience with Asian operators, who often come from manufacturing background, real estate background, very structured hierarchical thinking, they're going to chase cost savings, I think,
Eh,
because I'm in these conversations. So, to build on what Chris said, yeah, there's this like gut instinct. I'm just gonna buy this tool and put it in, and it's going to be ROI all day long. And I think they're going to be disappointed. Looking longer term, uh, and looking at, even within my own team, if I look at the youth, if I can say it that way, I'm really delighted by this. I'm surprised and delighted by how they use this new tech to and the breakthroughs that they have. And I think that if I can put it this way, that's almost my mission now is to work with, independent operators to be like, where can we apply the lightest touch of this and just see what happens and get people excited about it? Because I think that's ultimately what's going to be your standout moment. It's something you just couldn't foresee it because it maybe came from this particular team. It could be housekeeping, marketing, whatever. Um, and it's something that people really get excited about. And yeah, that's what AI practically enables these days. Just if I can tell my own sort of like team story, we're a Pan-Asian team. We've got offices in Singapore, Hong Kong, Saigon, Manila. One of the challenges that we had is just like staying together and just staying in touch in informal ways, right? In organic ways. And I had a team member that I never anticipated this would happen, but using AI and Claude, you guys know what vibe coding is? He vibe coded his way to this coffee credit platform where you could like thank each team member. Like everyone got a set of credits, and you could just sort of assign credits to each other for just helping out, and just creating team bonding moments. And um, I never saw that coming. I really didn't, and that's actually been institutionalized. That's something we've like built into our handbook now, and we're going to invest into. So, uh, I, I'm jazzed about those kinds of moments and
Yeah.
finding those breakthroughs for my clients. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is. The future is full of breakthroughs, and it's hard to predict, but very interesting to get your take on that and your personal experience. All right, I think we're about to wrap out the last panel. Maybe quickly, Andrea, is there something that you foresee in the future? Like how you wish, or how do you see the food waste, or generally the sustainability aspects and technology evolving for the next few years? How do you see that?
Thank you,
Maybe
Matheus.
because we're trying to keep it within the time
Yeah,
frame,
yeah,
so
I know
let's
we're a bit late,
let's keep it
so
keep
I
it
will be
short.
short. So on the data, of course, I see consolidated data set. At the moment, we have different data in the hotel industry into silos system. So each system has its own data, but the system with each other don't communicate that much. At least food waste data for sure is not integrated into the revenue system, purchasing data. So if we start like connecting the dots, talking about purchasing, storage, forecasting, production chart, we can see seasonality, weather, occupancy rate, all this information on the food waste side. If we then correlate, thanks to the AI, thanks to the new technology, we have like way stronger power to analyze data and identify patterns that maybe we don't even know they exist.
Beautiful.
If we instead zoom out a bit from the technology, I would like to say hotels have some kind of center hub for community in terms of sustainability to support all the local ecosystem of suppliers, transformation, redistribution company. So being the hotel as kind of a promoter of sustainability initiatives in the region, I mean, at least with the local community.
Okay.
That's the story.
Beautiful. Bright future ahead.
I hope
Thank
so.
you.
Yeah, that's the vision.
Okay, just quickly, I don't think we have any questions from the audience. Do you see any questions? I can't see it in the question and answer, Jeremy. No, no questions. I think then we can move on with the next panel. I would like to thank you very much, Matthew, Chris, Andrea. Very diverse, very similar, and also very interesting insights to data, AI, and what the future holds for us. I would love to introduce the second panel right now. And without further ado, I want to hand over to Jeremy, our moderator for the second panel. Um, Jeremy is an impact entrepreneur and a marketing communications leader dedicated to advancing sustainability in travel. He's a regular voice on international conferences and the co-founder of Asia Sustainable Travel, or short AST. AST is an intelligence platform providing agenda-setting sustainability insights to the global travel and hospitality industry for an audience of more than 60 countries. Amazing. Great first panel. Over to you, Jeremy, and good luck. I think you're still on mute, but it was a good start.
Can you believe that? After how many years of doing Zoom, I'm still I still haven't learned. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. So this is the last panel discussion of today, and I am so delighted to be your moderator for this discussion, which we will focus on how to navigate AI-driven data collection and marketing responsibly. And I know the previous panel discussion and also Julie mentioned that AI has been reshaping travel faster than any technological shift we have lived through. So from how we understand travelers to how we market to them specifically and optimize revenue, personalized content, and measure sustainability impact. So from the storytelling and data collection perspective, um, especially for hospitality and tourism marketing leaders, AI now enables us to do a lot of things. For example, hyper personalized marketing and segmentation, scalable content production at unprecedented speed, and real-time social listening and market intelligence, and also help us time better to start and end a campaign, right? Marketing campaign, of course, I'm saying here, and just overall help us map out a more aligned guest journey from automation to to um, to follow up post stay. So while AI gives us incredible new capacities, but like the previous panel discussion said, it has also introduced a set of new risks and also responsibility for us to take into consideration when we integrate AI into our daily life and work, the way we travel. So let's just give an example, so there are equally serious caveats we must confront. So one is incorrect attribution and misleading insights. And then the second thing that I'm most concerned about, I'm personally concerned about, is that dominant narrative bias, because AI can reinforce standardized voices and drown out the nuance, diversity, and cultural identity that make destinations and a brand unique. And the third point is data privacy and IP risks. And this came up a lot when I was at Further East, which is a conference that took place in Bali a few weeks ago. Was that travel data leakage from travel data leakage to accidental use of copyrighted material. And last but not least is the overlines on that, and that means that the team might risk losing critical thinking, copywriting craft, especially when we in marketing we write a lot of content. And so the question right now is really not about whether AI will transform hospitality. It already has, as we know it. So to answer the question that I have, or we have today, is we can unlock AI's potential without undermining trust, transparency, creativity, and community integrity. So today, we are joined by two brilliant leaders shaping the future of responsible AI in travel. We have with us Tara Schrank, who is the Senior Director of Digital Strategy at Lemongrass Marketing. She's a thought leader on AI content ecosystems, SEO, and ethical digital storytelling. And then we also have Dimitri Seris, who is the founder and CEO of Boutry, and he founded this platform Boutry, to blend behavioral science and AI to measure sustainability impact with integrity, especially in nature-based and community-led destinations. And Dimitri and Tara, could you each briefly introduce yourself and what you do in 45 seconds? Tara, would you like to go first? Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Both too polite to go first. I'm Tara Schwank, Senior Director of Digital Strategy here at Lemongrass. And Lemongrass is a UK-based PR agency. We're also a B Corp and we take our sustainability credentials really seriously. So we're all carbon literacy certified individually and as an agency. We're silver level accredited there as well. And we work only within travel. So we work with hotels, tourism boards, tour operators, anyone in the travel space, and we help them get found online in whether that's with print coverage, influencer marketing, and now increasingly with AI. So a huge part of my role at the moment is understanding AI, optimizing for our clients, and making sure that our clients are discoverable in LLMs as well. And I'll hand back to Dimitri.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you, Jeremy. So, hello everyone. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I've been on this for a while now, and it's some amazing insights that have come out of it. Just to introduce Bayertree, we are a sustainability management and intelligence platform. We founded the business in Kenya about 2019, so nearly 6 years ago. And the whole intention was to design a system and a solution to help tourism operators collect and manage their water, waste, and energy data. But not only that, but also to collect and manage their biodiversity as well as their community and social impact data and centralize that into one platform that just makes it really easy for anyone to adopt. And so we've been built in rural Africa, for the world. And so our clients are based within this wonderful continent. I'm in the Kruger National Park right now in South Africa. If anyone hasn't been, please come visit. And then also in the Southeast Asia region. And so, Jeremy, I'm going to hand back to you. Look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. So let's talk about responsible AI usage. So and how that impact the way we use it for marketing and solutions. So to first understand what responsible AI management means, so let's. Recently, I read an article from IBM, apologies, and it talks about 5 pillars of trust: explainability, fairness, robustness, transparency, and privacy, and a guiding theme of purpose alignment. And when we apply these pillars to the travel sector, they can help us determine whether technology strengthens or erodes the integrity of our industry. So let's break this down, the 5 pillars of trust, with our speakers and use their expertise and help us understand it a bit better. So Tara, let's start with you. Before we move deeper into the ethics, I want to make sure that we're grounding this conversation in AI literacy. We have quite a large audience here, so 200 plus. So because so much of AI so much of responsible AI management starts with understanding the tools themselves, as Chris previously alluded to. Could you explain, now in human terms, the difference between generative AI and large language models, or LLMs? Who wins and loses when LLMs dominate Google search share?
Yeah, of course. It's a great question. It's something we get asked almost daily. So I think grounding it in literacy is a really great place to start. Generative AI, when we use that term, we're using it as an umbrella. So it's anything that comes under the AI umbrella that can create something. So it's a system or a model that can create something like text or imagery or video or audio. That is what we are talking about when we're talking about just generative AI. LLMs are one type of that system, and they are only looking at text. So they are text predictors, and these are the ones that most people are more familiar with. So this is your ChatGPT or whatever system you might use. So that's the two differences there. And when we're talking about search and winners and losers, LLMs are starting to take a lot more of that market share. So the search traffic that we used to find on Google is now migrating over to things like ChatGPT. And if you think about how that functions and how people use it, it's a no-click, no-link model. So whenever you go into the ecosystem of ChatGPT and you start using it, usually you stay within that ecosystem. So the idea and the winners of that system are people who can optimize for ChatGPT or LLMs. And if you're coming up in those responses, you're there going to be found, and you're going to benefit from much larger brand awareness than those who aren't. And in terms of the losers, I think it's anyone who is doing generic content strategy, anyone who's doing volume first. If you're focusing on volume and churn, that's not going to benefit you for these large language models and for AI generally as well. Your content now has to be really unique because AI has to summarize that in a way that's bite-sized and practical for the audience. So that's the difference and a little bit of the winners and the losers, but I'm sure we'll do more of a deep dive into that as well as we continue talking.
Thank you. And just one follow-up question then, Tara. So from the perspective of the marketing strategist or professional, which of these shifts should brand they pay closest attention to if they want to stay ahead of the curve, not just in performance, but also in ethical storytelling, right? So you mentioned LLM being dominating the search resource. So how what is it that we need to pay attention to now in terms of ethical storytelling?
Sure. So I think there's a real danger of creating stories and using things like ChatGPT to generate content that then isn't fact checked. So we find this a lot when we're looking at websites for our clients. We have to make sure that there's a human eye going through great quality content that's being created by things like
Yeah.
ChatGPT. And there's no harm in using it to create content. And it definitely does take away a lot of the friction and, cost implications where we were a couple of years ago, even with having to have large scale content teams and content writers. But the danger is really around not having that be checked. And then if it's finding its way into ChatGPT and it's fulfilling a query with the wrong information, that's when you as a brand are really going to fall into quite a big trap there. So we really
Got
say
it.
to stay ahead of the curve, you need to have high quality content that talks to your audience in the right way and it's answering the right queries, but also it has to be factual and it has to still go through that human lens and it has to be checked for things like cultural bias and nuance. I think things like AI, we're really at a risk of that being completely erased. So as long as that can be reinserted back into the story, that's where we'll see the biggest wins and shifts.
We'll go deeper into the formats and what you mean by high quality content in just a bit. But before we get there, Dimitri, do you have anything to respond to Tara's answers or
Jeremy, it was a strong message. I don't want to dilute what Tara shared because I
okay.
believe in back everything shared.
Okay, great. Well, and because thank you for that. And my question for you, Dimitri, is about bias, and because bias doesn't just affect marketing, it also shapes whose communities are visible, whose stories get funded, and whose data is valued, especially when it comes to data management. But Dimitri, your work at Bowtree involves you combining behavioral science with sustainability data. That makes your perspective on AI particularly unique, if I may say. So when AI is used to shape behavior, allocating and to allocate resources and communicate impact, how do you ensure that those systems remain fair, robust, and aligned with the purpose of sustainable tourism and regenerative tourism? Because instead of intentionally reinforcing biases and inaccuracies that AI may commit.
Thank you, Jeremy. Look, I think it starts with something that you've already shared around one word, and that's trust. But now,
Yep.
establishing trust is a significant challenge. And we've built Baytree in a way that
Yeah.
inspires and reimagines how to establish trust at the accommodation or destination property
Right.
level. Because right now, from next year, we're growing into the hundreds of destinations, and in 2027, the thousands of destinations. So as a
Wow.
tech business, we have to think, how can we be truly scalable, meaningful without having to hire hundreds of employees? And so we're also reflecting in the mirror and looking at how do we utilize AI responsibly and ethically.
Mm.
And so when it comes to trust and establishing that, not just within my team, but also our clients and our partners in the field, it comes down to an input and an output when it comes to managing data and information. And so what I mean by that, Jeremy, is from an input point of view, the number one challenge is education. Like everyone on this call might know sustainability, might know data, but maybe not everyone's an expert. And so how do we decentralize information in a way that can translate to everyone's local context and give them meaning in terms of how to adopt a system? And in this case, Baytree. And so that's something we're actively doing, is building educational content and resource guides so that when someone does onboard into Baytree, they're guided and coached through our AI agents to effectively understand how can I utilize and create the right inputs from a water, waste, energy, or a education or healthcare or regenerative agriculture program, but be guided in the same way that we use Canva. And you've got all of those templates. You log in, you search for brochure, marketing, pitch deck. You've got all the templates. And so we're building a library of templates to do the heavy lifting and the thinking, where people can then just customize those
Mm.
templates and metrics based on their need and operation. But the input is really giving the education and the tools so that people can DIY with still our human touch. And we do have a wonderful customer team to do that hand holding. But the integrity of that information and how it comes in will determine the outcome. So that takes me to the output. So we help people come into the Baytree world and then it implements. And so we have a mobile application and everyone has one of these, you can't see it, devices in their pocket. And we're gamifying sustainability where everyone can earn badges, unlock rewards, and kind of collect water badges, energy badges, whatever it might be, but incentivizing that change management through also having embedded education in the application. This isn't live, this is a plan for 2026,
Yeah.
but it's like making it, like Julia mentioned, making it fun and interactive and engaging. And then once you've got good inputs and then the data collection happens and the feed of information comes into our system, it has a lot of metadata, the location, who collected it. There's accountability layers that come along with our tech.
Mhm.
Now it's like, okay, 6 months in, we've collected thousands of data points. So what? And then it comes down to the AI capability of just having a large language model sandboxed, just meaning siloed to that data, that client's ecosystem, and then having the ability to prompt, how my bed night capacity for February was at 80%. And then in, I don't know, April, it was 40%. But then doing the comparable, how much water, waste, and energy was I utilizing month on month compared to the energy, water, waste? And having that comparison, you'll be able to start seeing the trend. They're like, why did I have so much waste when we were at 40% capacity and it was almost equal to when we were at 80% capacity? And it's like these are the types of outputs that will take hopefully everyone into the world of becoming a data scientist, but just by being able to ask the right questions. And again, that will need to be guided as to what are the questions I should be asking my data. And that comes into the form of coaching. So it's very much just a productivity tool from the lens of Baytree. And we can't ever release our own human capacity and the human touch, as Tara mentioned. We need to humanize the technology in a way that gives everyone the meaning for the reporting and the
Right.
compliance and everything.
That makes a lot of sense. And you said you're working with hundreds and nearly thousands of
Not yet.
brands. Not yet. You will soon.
Yes. Yeah.
And the data you collect is still manageable, right, by your team. But let me just pivot this to Tara quickly regarding collecting consumer data, right? Brands like so. Dimitri talked about input the data input and then the output of that is strategy is helping us make better and informed information. And when it comes to brands and when they do marketing campaigns, right? And we see on social media, on Google and any touch points these days, we are just tired of pop-ups. There's so many pop-ups and ads and tracking notices, and I just cannot keep track. I have so many apps on my phone. I don't know who is reading my text and is it Apple? Is it an app? I'm so confused. And it's also very vague content requests and permission. But then brands rely on getting these data points to personalize their services and products. So as a sustainability centric brand who balances privacy, consent, and but at the same time data requirement for AI driven marketing. So what does responsible consumer data collection actually look like today? Have you worked with any brands and advise them on that? And permission marketing is actually getting pretty huge right now. There's actually a pushback from quite a few ethical brands I've worked with. Like we don't want to collect until they give us the permission. So talk to us about your experience and your expertise in advising brands on this front.
Yeah, and this is such a huge topic. And if you're confused and you're feeling confused and you work in the travel industry, what hope does a consumer have? So this is a massive topic. And I think responsible data collection today looks much more like a relationship than an extraction. So it's an understanding. And I think the value exchange has to be really obvious to the consumer. So we're asking for this information because it's going to make your trip better in a really specific and really clear way. And if that's not clear and that's not communicated, I think people then fall into feeling tracked rather than serviced or served. So that's where the big difference is. But really practically, I think brands should start from minimal viable data. We should be collecting less of that, but looking to collect a lot better quality data and really prioritizing things like first party or zero party data. So what people choose to share, what people want to give you, and they'll do that on your own channels. This is where the importance of a really good website, really good newsletter, really good blog, all of the things that you can own and you can manage and you can look after yourself is even more important. Things like if you're over reliant on social media, we know that social media platforms come and go and you don't ever own that data, somebody else does. So your own data is more important than ever. And having that be really accurate and really respectful is really important too. And to just communicate it really plainly, travelers don't want to be bamboozled with legal language. What we want is we want things to be really transparent and we want it to be really clear. And if we can do that well, we can personalize with AI and we can scale and we can grow, but we can also do that without breaking the trust. And I think this comes back to the trust point that Dimitri was making.
Right.
If we don't show trust, then we lose it. It's so easy to lose, but so hard to gain. So it's a huge one with consent and data collection, massive.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Trust and explainability. You mentioned that, how to explain to people what you're using it for. And Dimitri, back to you very quickly on so you mentioned in your previous answer that the output, the sustainability reporting that you helped brands produce. Have you seen any examples of flawed data points distorting an impact narrative? And how do you build AI systems at Beltree that remains robust, resilient, and ideally resistant to greenwashing, especially if the data is collected in remote field conditions?
Thanks, Jeremy. Look, I think with regards to flawed data points, distorting an impact narrative, one thing I can share from this continent is that African safari businesses, as well as other tourism organizations, are really good at storytelling. And storytelling is critical to attract people to your destination. Come and see the last couple of manta rays around the Maldives, or come see the Big Five in the Kruger National Park and sit under the campfire. So the storytelling has always been a selling point for the industry. But now there's something called the Empowering Consumers Directive. This is a piece of compliance or regulation that's going to be coming out in September 2026, because we know the EU green claims kind of to dust. So the Empowering Consumers Directive is all around ensuring that from a traveler's point of view, when we are marketing as a tourism business, we're not falsifying claims when we have evidence to back up the claims we make. And so this is where we come in as Bayotry, being a data collection, data management, and sustainability management tool. We help in these organizations collect data at the grassroots level, the property level, to effectively maintain that robust point of view, but then also to translate and utilize that data to tell stories we haven't been able to tell before. Because some of our clients in the Kruger or in Botswana or in Kenya now have a tool where they have a foundation. It's a 17 group camp lodge organization called African Bush Camps. They fund a lot of community healthcare education programs. And now through our system, they're gathering all this data from all the different locations, where the schools are, where the education and mobile health clinic is happening. And they now have such a rich body of information to translate that into a story that they can stand behind and really back up and trust. And our system, again, is designed to work offline. Like you can collect data even without a mobile network, no 3G, 4G Wi-Fi.
Wow.
And it still tags the location thanks to the satellites high up above. And so you get such a beautiful story around the data. And again, we have to help our clients coach them and to communicate that, because it's new beyond just the campfire stories that have been. So it's a blend of merging the brand's authority as well as their narrative and their tone and style with, I guess, the new tool that we bring. So it's joint collab on that side.
That's great. And And I'm wondering, sorry, this is I'm just putting you on the spot, Tara. So stories like that, we realize that when we get it from first primary source, and yet use to some extent AI to either syndicate the data points or whatnot. And my question for you, Tara, is that would you advise brands to disclose when content or data points or recommendations were supported or generated by AI? Because you talked about trust and talks about trust, but do you think it's a step too far to say that this report or this story was supported by AI? Do you think that would hurt or harm a brand if they do that? If they do that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And I think what Dimitri is speaking to when he's talking about using data to support storytelling, it's a huge thing that we do in PR when we're working with properties, especially wildlife driven properties, like you mentioned, Dimitri. They have amazing stories that often are grounded in data. So if AI is coming into that with the content harvesting or it's supporting or the AI is coming at the end of that to help you make sense of the data, I don't think it's adding much value to the story to say, oh, AI was part of this data collection. It's just giving us the extra tool. It's more like a software that we're using to support that story. So in that instance, I would say no, it's not critical that that comes into it. But if we're using much more sort of story-led or even AI-driven imagery, which we've seen a lot in the last couple of weeks online on social media, there's a bit of a trend to sort of insert pictures of animals into certain images. Things like that, I'd say absolutely, yes, you should be putting some sort of label on it, but it has to be in a way that's really meaningful. So people don't mind when things have AI assistance as part of that, but what people do mind is deception or lack of accountability. And I think there is quite a difference in that. So rather than a vague badge that says AI was used, and I think this comes back to Dimitri's point about the Green Claims Code of being really clear about what you're saying. The best practice here is to be really fair and transparent and to pair that with human responsibility. So if you were to say, this itinerary was AI assisted and reviewed by our local experts, that gives a lot more. Or something like this summary was AI generated and verified by our team. I think the and point is really important there. So that kind of disclosure, again, coming back to the trust point, it really builds that trust. It tells the traveler two things. It says what the tool actually did and the brand that then stands behind that tool as well.
Right, right. That's a very good point. So I want to stay on with you for another question, Tara. So before we integrate or brand integrates AI into key aspects of marketing engine, so let's say generate imaging or using it for fast track the content creation. So what foundational elements do you recommend brands to put in place? So for example, how can they leverage sustainability content cluster? So and story formats such as videos, still visuals, and written content, audio. There's so many of different formats of content out there to build a responsible AI management framework. So it's a long question, but I hope that you, with your expertise, you can actually help us understand how to get started because sometimes we just go into using it without thinking about the framework to put in place that we need to put in place to hold us accountable, right? So talk to us about that, if you may.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the foundations that you just alluded to there really do matter. So the first is really around being clear about your purpose. Why are you wanting to use AI? Often we've had clients come to us and sort of say like, oh, what should I be doing with AI? How should I use it? And the question is really to go back one point before that and say, what do you want to do? What are you trying to achieve? Not just to use AI for the sake of wanting to be using it. So if it's things like scale or speed or personalization or insight, you have to make sure that that really aligns with your brand and your brand values and what you're actually wanting to get at the end of that. And if your purpose isn't clear, this is especially true with generating things like written content or copywriting. If your purpose isn't clear and you're not able to prompt well, AI is just scaling noise. It's just creating things that doesn't add any value. And that's where the real sustainability concerns around, the energy that goes into things like AI becomes
Right.
even more pressurized. Because if you're using it for the right things, I think, it's fine. But if you're using it for the wrong things, that's where the pressure point really comes. And I'd say the second is about being very clear about your content ecosystem. So, especially true for things around sustainability and anything in that ecosystem, your brand needs to be really clear about what content you're trying to generate. And the only way you can do that is by understanding the audience that you have. So, what are they actually asking? And I think this is where I'm seeing quite a lot of our brands down, they're not getting it right. They aren't able to understand what that person is wanting to prompt in the first instance. And that expertise that you're delivering really has to be grounded in things like local expertise, transparency, evidence, all the things that we've already talked about. And that has to be overlaid, as I said, with your human storytelling there as well. So the two always have to go hand in hand. And there's a couple of things that I think we should not be using AI for, controversially. And I'd say one of them is definitely around anything to do with a real human element. So anything to do with like HR, hiring, firing, that shouldn't really be going through AI just because of the ingrained biases that it has within it.
Right.
It's been made by people and it will always reflect back the type of people it's been made by. So that's something at Lemongrass that we will just never use AI for, because I don't think it would ever offer something of value there. And we have to be really careful about using it for the right way. So hopefully that answers your question in a
Thank
long-winded
you.
way.
No, that's great. That's great. Thank you. And I'm hoping that Dimitri can add on to a bit more context to this, because you alluded to, excuse me, you alluded to data collection earlier, and I'm wondering, Dimitri, in sustainability data collection and management, how do you design governance systems to ensure accountability when AI is used? So by that I mean, how do you incorporate human-powered checks and balances, verification, community oversight? If so, how? And do you have any experience? Do you have any examples that you can share with us on that?
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. So I'm going to align with Tara. Again, we're in very much good agreement here. But like it does come down to like what is the objective or the intention of,
Yeah.
again, us coming in as a sustainability management tool? Why do you want to track your sustainability? Is it for compliance regulation? Is it for storytelling and investor reporting? Is it for guest engagement or community impact measurement? And so when we understand that, then we can look at the governance type in terms of just how do we structure that accountability working towards the outcome that that client of ours is trying to achieve. And so when it comes to those human powered checks, again, because we mobile first, there's a lot of cool things where we get a unique identifier. So when submits something at a piece of data that they recorded at the borehole or at the solar power station, it tags the location. I know it was Tara. I have a unique identifier to know, and then I also have the date and timestamp. And so that adds a layer of accountability and verification. I can see Tara wasn't at the coffee station, but she was at the solar plant, actually doing the work where she said she was doing it. And then comes in a layer of those human checks in terms of I'm now the sustainability manager, just checking and managing and approving that data submission from within Baytree. And then that comes to like the verified data sets. And so when it comes to the reporting, filter in our system by everything that's been approved, because there's also an option for rejected and there's an option for edited. Just to speak to that edited function, where the Tara submitted a piece of information, came to the dashboard, and then I, as the sustainability manager, noticed a discrepancy or something funny, I can send that piece of data back to Tara and ask her just to correct that information.
Right.
But then there's going to be a digital record that that submission was edited, and that lives as an audit in our system. But there's that accountability, but the integrity. And that really, when it comes to the reporting piece, you can't really edit, corrupt, or manipulate the data within Baytree, which freaks some people out. If you want to, you can export the data and do what you want with it. But within our ecosystem, we want to uphold that integrity. So when it does come to pushing a magic button, this isn't live yet. Everyone's asking for it. A little magic button that will push out some beautiful visuals, graphs, maps of that impact report. It has that little stamp of saying, this has a data provenance badge. It like follows a particular standard of information that's been collected within a system that can't be corrupted. And so that's really how we're just building Baytree just to uphold that, because look, I'm going to speak openly. There's a lot of corruption on the continent that I'm on and around the world. And it's come to a point where that doesn't help us anymore in terms of that
Mm.
corruption and the manipulation that goes on. So we
Mm.
met with challenge as a organization when trying to show people this way. And that just has to come with some change management and showing them the outcome and the value in terms of what that long-term benefit is of being a trustworthy, transparent brand.
And so thank you for that, sharing that. So one point that really resonated with me was the checks and balances that you have. So you have multiple verification points from the data submitter to the data manager, and in addition to that is one great guardrail. Do you have any guardrails that you recommend brands to put in place to prevent greenwashing and model distortion? For example, so great that you have data, but then people tend to interpret the data different ways, right? And when it comes to marketing communications, and it's art. It's a balance between art and science. And have you come across any effective guardrails when it comes to not just data collection, but also um, data reporting to prevent greenwashing? Am I making sense? Yeah.
I believe so. I hope I answer correctly.
Okay. Yeah.
But Jeremy, twofold. One is
Yeah.
everyone after this call, just go and research AI governance
Yeah.
and look at how you can create a policy for your own organization
Yeah.
around AI governance and how that should be utilized within
Yeah.
the organization. I think it's a nice foundation to start with. And
Yeah.
then the second is when it comes to reporting,
Mm,
speak to the evidence that you can report on. Don't just
mm,
make up stuff that we put 50,000 women through social economic development program and that was our corporate social responsibility. Rather show and tell the story of what worked, but also
mm,
what didn't work. Like when you're
mm,
vulnerable and honest, and you say
mm,
that, we had a lot of waste last month, but this is our plan to reduce that waste.
mm,
It's okay to be vulnerable and share that because then you're going to connect
mm,
with and also you're going to be human yourself when it comes to that communication. So we always try to
mm,
show our best selves, but sometimes what really connects is when we show the not so bright side of our brand and just be honest about
mm.
that and what you're going to do to better it. And so
Got
that's
it.
the only thing I share, but we'd also love to hear Tara's perspective on that.
Yeah, Tara, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I do. I think your point about an AI policy is great. We have an AI policy at Lemongrass that we created about 4 months ago. The whole team have read it and are aware of it and have signed to it, saying that they will work within our AI policy. So that I think is a great place, really practical to start for any sort of brand who's looking at dipping their toes into this. And just your point about greenwashing and carbon commitments. I think your point about being really clear on what didn't work is so important. If
Mm,
you're doing something like an impact report, lots of our clients do impact reports every year. Be really clear in that about what you tried, what didn't work for you, and then what did work for you. Because there are so
mm,
many people out there who will benefit from that learning. And I think if you sweep
mm.
things under the rug and you aren't really clear about these
Right,
things, we don't progress, we don't move forward. So be really clear
right.
about what you tried. Um, for example, in our own impact report this year, we've talked about what we put in place to reduce our own carbon, which,
Mm,
as you can imagine, in travel, in a PR agency, is really hard.
mm.
And we've
Right.
talked in depth about that, about what we've done, the guardrails that we've put in place, how we've tried to do less flying, what's worked, what's not worked. So hopefully that will be really interesting for the rest of the industry to read. And hopefully they can take something from what we're doing and they can put it into practice as well. So
Yeah.
I think knowledge sharing and being really open about what you've learned is so important.
Yeah, oftentimes I agree with you on that front because oftentimes we as a storyteller, we like to talk about successes and achievements and not enough about our challenges and failures, but we can learn from both, right? So I'm conscious of time, so I'd love to move us to into the rapid fire question. So that means you each only have and also excuse me respond with one sentence answer. So Tara, let's start with you again while you're on. So what is one AI marketing trend you wish would disappear?
So hard to do it concisely. I think the one thing I wish could disappear would be the obsession with creating AI generated content over traveler value, because as I said, it just scales and it just floods the world with noise. So if that could go away, I'd be very pleased.
Thank you. Dimitri, what is one ethical line AI in tourism must never cross?
Do not integrate anything about your staff, community, team members in terms of personally identifiable information, because when we do
Okay,
that, we're taking away their dignity through digital systems.
very good point. Tara, what is one thing marketers should never automate with AI, no matter how good the technology gets?
It's very similar to Dimitri's answer previously. I think anything to do with personal information, information about hiring and firing, like I said, anything in that HR sphere, I don't think should get automated with AI.
Got it. So should never ask AI to produce a JD. For example, okay. Dimitri, what's one sustainability metric you would never trust AI to calculate without human oversight?
Human performance or human progress in terms of my team. They might
Okay.
not be meeting their KPIs, but if that team member is the most passionate, enthusiastic person with the willingness to learn, I'm going to invest in that person because I see the potential, and AI will just look at what data it has on them rather than the full human.
Great. Thank you. I think we're at time, so thank you so much, Dimitri and Tara, for your knowledge and sharing your insights with us. I have one question from the audience from Tinu. So, I'm not. So let me just read this to you here. So, do you think that beyond data, more anecdotal stories should be shared about positive impact, so that AI can pull from these sources too? Anyone wants to take a stab at this question?
Tara?
Anecdotal stories, Tara?
Could you repeat it, please?
Okay, sure. Do you think that beyond data, more anecdotal stories should be shared about positive impact, so that AI can pull from these sources too? Meaning, you talk about
More
Google.
anecdotal storytelling, yes, and not having it grounded in facts, maybe. It's difficult to say without knowing the details and the ins and outs of it. I think there is some dangers with leaning towards more anecdotal evidence, and that is you can sort of sway towards more greenwashing. If you're not giving evidence to your claims, there is a bit of a concern there. But if the worry and the question is more around, well, I have all these great stories to tell, but I don't necessarily have the data to back it up to make it feel grounded in data, that is slightly different. And I would say if you have the anecdotal story and you can find a way to share that, it's more about the platform than the storytelling, maybe. So it might be that that story works really well across things like social media, or you can mention it in a couple of lines in an email market news blast, rather than sort of go out with a press release. So the method and the format really does matter. But I would say wherever you can legitimize a claim, your audience is always going to respond a lot better to that. So if you are struggling to capture that data, maybe have a look at Dimitri and see what he can help you with there as a first instance. And in a second instance, come and chat with your PR agency if you have one, and they can always give you a good steer, especially if they've got carbon literacy certifications. They can always give you a good guidance on what you can and can't say.
Thank you so much, Tara, for that. And thank you. And I would now want to invite our next speaker onto our virtual stage, Fernanda Rodak. Fernanda, are you on?
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Hi there. So I'd like to have you close us off today's summit. So Fernanda is a project manager at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, or BAPTA, as we know here in the region. So Fernanda is a sustainability expert and tourism strategist with deep experience in resilience, innovation, capacity development across the Asia Pacific region. So ABAPTA, one of the region's most established and travel and tourism organizations, with nearly 75% years of legacy. So she BAPTA, Fernanda leads multi-country initiatives designed to strengthen destinations' readiness, promote sustainable business practices, and build the capacities of tourism organizations and government and SMEs. So thank you for being here with us today, Fernanda. Given what you have heard from speakers today, what were two highlights that resonated with you the most?
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the Asia Travel Future Summit team, also Wise Steps Group for the invitation and for creating such a timely and important event. So after absorbing all the insights from today and taking many notes from Julie's keynote to the two great panel discussions, I think the two lessons that we absolutely must take with us is number one, human judgment is the ultimate AI guardrail. I think this was the strongest theme today. Every speaker stressed that AI's best function is to augment human ability, but not automate it away. As leaders, we must resist the urge to blindly outsource everything to the machine. Skill atrophy, losing our critical thinking and analytical judgment is real. And the human role, the human AI collaboration, as we discussed today, is what provides accountability, ethical framework, and cultural sensitivity needed to build resilient operations and trustworthy guest experiences. And I would say that the number two takeaway from today is that data-driven sustainability is a non-negotiable profit driver. From Andreas and Dimitri's insights, they were very powerful here. And they provided the necessary proof points that sustainability is just good business. Using AI and data to solve problems such as food waste doesn't just make you a more responsible business, but it also has a great financial savings. It proves that sustainability is a strategy for profitability. So, and Dimitri also reminded us that the data must have integrity, and also the other speakers, of course. If we use AI to measure impact, we must use systems that are fair, that are robust, and resistant to greenwashing. And transparency and trust rely entirely on the quality of the data that we feed to the machine.
Thank you. Wow, that's very powerful. Thank you. Human is the ultimate guardrail and data-driven sustainability. Love that very much. And looking ahead to 2026, we actually literally a few weeks out of to 2026. So, what are your top two predictions related to AI and sustainability in the region, in the APAC region, that we need to keep a close eye on? Two predictions. Do you have any? Not prediction, but also key developments that we need to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on.
Sure. So I think number one, AI will keep driving sustainability metrics and traceability. We just saw the power of AI in measuring food waste, and I think this will rapidly expand as it already is to cover all aspects of operational sustainability. And this goes beyond simply reporting. The need for traceability is escalating, so AI systems will track the entire life cycle of resources, allowing hotels and other travel businesses to identify systemic inefficiencies and provide customers with verified real-time data on their low carbon footprints choices. So I think this delivers on the promise of transparency that we've been talking about the whole session, turning business operations into measurable, sustainable systems. So I think that's the first prediction. The other one, I guess that we will also see a rise of more localized AI for ethical storytelling. We will see the intentional development of smaller, more custom AI models that are designed to fight what we called in this session the dominant narrative bias. So, because standard AI models risk to drown out the reach and cultural diversity and nuances of APAC, and the industry needs tools that are trained on specific local languages, cultural context, and traditional knowledge of the region. So, this would ensure that marketing content is authentically personalized and safeguarding the unique identity of our beautiful and unique APAC destinations, and respect also each destination's data sovereignty.
I love it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your prediction. So keeping a close eye on these two predictions. So we are actually over time. So I think it's a great summit so far. So thank you so much, Fernanda, for closing today's summit. And
Thank
next
you for
week
having
we
me.
will publish key takeaways and highlights from today's discussion. So please, like I mentioned, please head to asiasustainabletravel.com to join a newsletter to receive it directly in your inbox. If you like today's summit and we'd like to invite you to make a contribution. And please scan the QR code on the screen, and that will land you on the summit page where you have an option to contribute. And 50% of the commission will go into supporting traceable social and environmental initiatives. So as AST Trailblazer members and those contributing over 25% will receive a playbook on how to navigate AI-powered storytelling marketing responsibly. So if you have any questions or would like to speak at a future virtual events, please drop us an email, where you will find our email addresses on the screen. And finally, we thank our speakers and audience members for a very highly engaging conversation. So if you're in Asia, have a great evening to everyone in Asia, and good afternoon to those joining us from later time zones. So thank you, and see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.